Welcome to Just an Average Citizen, the podcast that helps to inform, educate, and empower you to make an impact in Abilene and the Big Country. It dawned on me the other day. I've been doing this podcast. Sorry, I can't talk right now. We're a couple years now, and I don't think I've ever really said my name. So I'm going to try and start doing that in the intro so that you can know that it's me, Tammy Fogel. I've been the one behind the scenes trying to figure out how it looks to be an average citizen. And clearly, we got a long ways to go. So it's really important that you would subscribe and share this podcast with your family and friends so that they can too know what's going on. I've been told that it's not always just applicable to what's going on here in the city of Abilene, but it can actually help others who are in other parts of the state to know how things work. Now, we are there are different types of cities, so it doesn't always translate, but there are things that we can know that every basic citizen should know the tools available to them to use. And so it's really helpful if you share and get the word out. I've tried to keep these a little bit less time than I probably could talk about it because I know that we are still moving forward and learning this new way of life, because average citizens just in the past, what was expected of us was just to trust the system, was just to trust the experts, just to believe if someone held a position of authority that they knew what was best, and we were just to blindly trust them. And what I've seen in this past week and a half makes me sick to my stomach of how much is expected for us to trust people with no proof or no real evidence that they are trustworthy. We're just supposed to trust them because of their title, and that is truly troubling. So I'm going to try not to go off into the weeds too much on this podcast, but there are some things that I think we need to step up. We need to learn that there is more required of us than we've ever been asked. And part of the problem is most people are fine with the requirement they're being asked to contribute to our community. They're fine with being, uninformed, not knowing what's going on, because it's just easier. It's easier not to know the mess because then you're not accountable for helping clean it up. And so as one who has seen the mess, who has been telling people about the mess for a long time, and I say mess, it's really just because there's not a really good system in place that includes us as citizens so we can know what's going on, we can be informed and involved, and yet we don't have to stand over their shoulders and go, okay, what are you doing now? Okay, what are you doing now? And I think that's really important for us to process and understand. And so what I'm asking of you is to do more than you've ever been asked to do before, not because you're running for office, not because you have a beef to pick with the city, but because we as citizens should do more. We should know more. There was an incident where a government employee decided to share their gripe about a new law that was passed in Texas in May, but they waited until the day before the law actually was enacted to have some complaints or make a big public statement about how heavy and how wrong this new law was. And to me, that's troubling because, if they had been a voice of someone who had been saying, hey, listen, this new Reader Act that's going into place, it's a bad deal. We need to stop it. We need to call our officials. We need to call and let our legislator know. We need to let Stan Lambert know this is a bad deal. We need to fight and protect the different components of this. And if I had heard anything about this from any person who's employed by the school district, I would have been like, wow, this is kind of exciting. We're getting involved and getting engaged. But that's not how the current system encourages you to do it. You just go, well, tomorrow the law is going to be enacted. And today I'm just going to bellyache about it because my, it's so hard. It's so hard. And again, if you have followed me for a hot minute, you know that I'm going to say, well, what law is it? Have you read the law? Have you shared the law so other people can be informed about it? Are you just going to tell them your interpretation of the law? Because that is not helpful. That does not carry the discussion further. It kind of shuts things down and makes people start to go off on a path that they shouldn't go off on, because that's not the system that is helpful. And it's the one that has kept us kind of paralyzed in what we have been feeling like we're kind of stuck with having to do. I can't remember if I mentioned this last podcast, but someone, I was just talking about how we need to communicate with our elected officials about our tax rates, especially here in the city. And they're like, I can negotiate my tax rate. Like, it's not just a foregone conclusion that it's going to go up. And again, I don't fault the citizen for not knowing. I fault the leadership for not taking time to communicate. So before I go too far off in the weeds, I just want you to know that my goal is to help you become someone who can look up the law, who can read the ordinances and resolution and understand what all these different memorandums of understandings are, the memorandum of agreements, what is a Chapter 380 agreement? What are all these different things? What's the no new revenue rate? I've been talking about that a lot. Hopefully, you know. In fact, a friend of mine was like, Tammy, someone was talking about it. And I actually understood it. And I was like, yes, we're making progress. And I just want you to know that after the day I've had, I am shocked at how when we put our trust in God, He guides our steps. Because to be honest, I struggle at times to go, am I making a difference? Am I really changing the conversation? Am I helping our community be better? And I don't always know that because the feedback I get is not always like, here's what you've done and here's where this is going and here's all the great things. But throughout the day, as much discouragement as I've felt, I've equally been encouraged by all the things that we've accomplished. And we don't celebrate those enough. We've accomplished a lot. I say we. Anyone who's been around me for a hot minute, we've been actually fighting the fight to try and restore transparency, financial transparency, if nothing, a fiscal responsibility, financial transparency, just opening up how the process works so that we can follow along and keep in step with what's going on. And so, in fact, it started off with me trying to watch an old podcast that I had recorded about a particular topic. And I was like, I'm going to see if I can reshare this, if it's pertinent to reshare. And then I laughed. I was like, oh, that was for me to listen to because, just because things don't seem to be going in the right way doesn't mean they are. And if we quit before we see victory or we see success or we see improvement in an area, we might be quitting on something that's in the process of becoming great. But we don't always know that. So we got to see it through. But I will say that I cannot do it alone. And if it's just me getting up there at city council saying, here's what we need to do, or if it's just me emailing the city councilman saying, this is what we need to do, or if it's just me and a couple of other people, it's going to stay the same because that is not the change that we need. We need not the entire community, but we need a good amount to start being more engaged than have been in the past. And, it'll help silence some of the naysayers who are like, oh my gosh, you just complain about taxes. And oh my gosh, why don't you stay in your lane and do your thing and stop messing with the good thing that we're okay with. And then the rest of the citizens are like, but we're not. And so one of the things I did want to point out to you was, I don't think I addressed it a whole lot. So I'm going to just come here real quick. Let me go to this one. Sorry, I put them in the wrong order. This is the Street Maintenance Advisory and Appeals Board meeting that I'm showing you right now. It's not necessarily that exciting. There were several citizens that showed up to talk about roads that were not on the list of jobs that need to be done. But what I realized is the system is broken. It is not working because I have been engaging with our city council specifically on the streets saying, listen, no one's happy about the streets. And they're saying, but look at all that we're doing. I was like, wow, y'all are doing a lot. Maybe it's just that we don't understand what each other is doing or what each other is saying, and there's just misdirection and miscommunication. So maybe if I can help communicate what's going on, then maybe the citizens will understand, or maybe I will understand why the citizens are complaining because they don't know what's going on, or maybe there's not enough going on. Honestly, all I could do was say, okay, this is what I'm hearing from the council. This is what I'm hearing from the city staff. Here's what I'm hearing from the citizens. And they did not cross. And it was at this meeting when I don't even remember which person said it. They said there was actually a new board member, which was really exciting. He kept asking a lot of good questions. And he's like, so is there too many projects we can do? And one of the staff said, it's never about too many projects. It's always about not having enough money. And I've heard that a lot of times before. This wasn't the first time I heard it, but I was like, oh my gosh, I finally get it. It's not that we're not doing enough. It's just that we don't have enough money. And when you give a board, in real time, the opportunity to discuss and decide out of 110 million projects, what the next 5 or 6 projects are going to be, it is an impossible task. And on top of that, it seemed like one of the mayor's connections got his bumped up to the top. And that's troubling to me because there's so many different projects that need to be done. We shouldn't be prioritizing certain business areas over others because there are people whose day-to-day lives are negatively affected because of this mess. And so while I understand the city council has said to me many times they're doing a lot, it's going well, we can't fix it all at once. I'm saying if we keep it at this pace, there are going to be more streets that will need full depth repair, which is the worst level of streets because they're degrading over time because we're not throwing enough money to keep the maintenance up on the just the maintenance ones versus the ones that are fully gone and have to be scrapped and start over. And so 4 more streets were downgraded to the worst level, and there's just more being added. And so it's like something's going on. And part of the problem is we don't know what's going on with the budget. So we can't say, hey, let's cut this. I'm thinking that the city would rather have 3 or 4 more streets fixed or 2 or 3 more streets fixed than to get a new bathroom out at the Fort Phantom Lake. I don't know. That just is what I'm hearing, but I don't think they get it. And so the way our system is that there is no transparency. We can't track how things are being spent, and we're just being asked for more money. And while, yes, they did decrease the tax rate from what they initially proposed, our taxes are going up. And now's the time to start talking about it. We can't wait till next July to say, I don't want new taxes. They actually start discussing the budget at the end of January, possibly the beginning of February. And if you're not communicating with the council what you want to be done and what is a priority, if it's lowering your taxes, then we've got to start telling them now so that when it comes around, they're going to have to say, the priority is that citizens want our taxes reduced. What are we going to do to fix that? Because our budget will not allow us to keep increasing and we can't keep doing the same projects we've always done. We've got to start streamlining. And how do we do that? I don't know, but I hope that we can start the conversation and make a better impact for sure in that way. Also, it was mentioned that 2, there's not that many. I think there was like 6. 2 of them had to be postponed due to the cyber attack. They lost the plans. So there are so many plans that have been lost that haven't been talked about. And I mentioned this at City Council the last meeting. I said, it must be because y'all can't talk about it because you're not telling us what's going on. I don't think that's the truth, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until they say, oh, we actually can talk about it. I mean, it's coming out in other areas. So why haven't we had an update on the cyber attack except for it should be resolved by October? But the problem is there's so many countless things that are negatively affected by losing these files. For example, the water rates, we lost that plan and we have to redesign it, repay for it, all that stuff. The 2 roads, did we lose all the design plans, the platting, all that stuff? I don't know. For those plans, will we have to pay for those again? So it's not just the cost to get back up and running, but it's the cost to pay for things we've lost that we've already paid for. And that's not being discussed. And that is an issue with me for financial transparency. All right, so I'm going to move on to the last thing I really think that I need to talk about, and then we're going to keep it short and sweet tonight. This is the City Council meeting from last week. I'm just playing the video because I really don't have any documents to show you. I did think this is a little side note. Councilman Reagan pulled out 2 items to discuss about an RV park, and he had a legitimate concern. Are we just building RV parks left and right because, of these temporary housing needs that we have for the construction? And the owner got up and said, actually, no, I've been working on this since before the AI system came to town. This is something I wanted to do. And then the newspaper or one of the I can't remember if it was KTAB or whatever, they're like, council's concerned about temporary RV parks being built. And guess, yes, they're concerned about it, but I don't know where that really came out of because, again, it wasn't this particular gentleman building this RV park has a long-standing relationship with the community. He's done lots of different projects. So it was just an interesting timing maybe. But I just thought that was an interesting takeaway from the meeting because that's not what was discussed. It was one of the initial questions, but it was easily cleared up and made sense as to what was actually going on at the RV park. So let me scroll down here and come to the last thing that I think is important. If you have some time, I would highly recommend you watch item 28, which is a resolution. And a resolution is just basically saying, here's what we have to do. This is our city business. It's required by law for us to tell you what's going on. But they're approving an abatement with Lancium, all the different plots. Is that what it's called? The property. So basically they did actually there was a better presentation than I was expecting. Emily did a good presentation communicating to us of what was going on to where I felt like at least we had some kind of understanding. I was shocked because I don't remember them saying there were 2 10-year abatements. I thought there was just one 10-year abatement. So that means now for 20 years, not now, I'll have to double check on this, but it's something to look into. Did they say in February that it was only a 10-year abatement, or did they say 2 10-year abatements? Again, something that I think I pay attention to, and it struck me as funny, but I don't know if I'm wrong. I've been wrong before, and I'm happy to admit it when I'm wrong and when I find things out. So again, this is just a resolution that has given away all this money to this company. And my part in bringing this up is I feel like with all the money that will be coming in, we should be spending more money on streets, especially since the traffic volume has increased significantly through all the people coming to our town. So see here, it says each data center site has two 10-year abatements. And so they basically just put, from what was communicated by Emily Crawford, the city manager, was that it's just basically an updating of actual locations of the building, because beforehand they didn't have the actual construction plans because it was still too early on. So it sounds like they're cleaning up basically, but again, I'll have to go back and check. And I do want to say that there was something that frustrated me greatly at the meeting. 962 pages, I think, is what the city council agenda packet was. And I looked over it, and 321 pages. Let me say that again. 321 pages was over this Lancium lease agreements. And a person, I mean, I try to be above average, but I will tell you this, I do not have the time, capacity, or bandwidth to read 321 pages of lease agreements over this entire thing. And so I was grateful for the extra presentation that normally doesn't come from the city hall on this stuff. I don't know, City Hall. I don't know who directs who to tell us what, but it was actually called a public hearing. And I thought this was funny because when I was reading the agenda packet on, I think, Sunday night or Sunday afternoon or something like that. So, like 5 days before the meeting, 4 days before the meeting. What is it? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Yeah, like 4 days before the meeting. It said, hey, we publicly announced that this was going to be a public hearing for everyone to come to on July 29th. And I was like, wow, I didn't even notice that. I didn't even see that anywhere. Where are they posting it? Is it posted at the building? Is it posted in the newspaper? Because you would think someone who's kind of paying attention and going to these meetings would see these things, but apparently not. So again, being transparent, making things easy for citizens to track and follow, it's not happening right now. And so I was just frustrated that when I heard that there were some additional packets added to the material, and there was no way to recognize, hey, there's been more material added except looking at the discrepancy in the page number. So it went up to like 1,100 and something. It's like 56 pages added, and there was no information saying, hey, we added something, here's some more information, nothing. And had Councilman Price not brought it up, I wouldn't have even probably thought to look back over it, because should I have to check multiple times to look at a packet? Like, I'm just trying to pay attention and see what's going on. And it's like so dadgum complicated. Anyway, so I went up and spoke about that. And I was like, I'm so frustrated because here I am checking the stuff. I'm doing my due diligence. There's 321 pages of just lease agreements that is so hard to track amongst all the other things. Come on, let's give us a break here. Let us know what's going on. And then I made an offhanded comment about how I don't even know if the public information request was available for us to do, because here's a tool that I like to use, and I've not used it in a while, because what's the point if it's not working? I don't know. And I hadn't seen an update that, yes, indeed, the public information request tool is available for us as citizens. And so it's funny, I had already filed a public information request on another item, because I find that there are topics that they just don't really help. There are topics they don't necessarily aren't helpful on, but there's also time frames. If it's like something that happened this week, it's a lot easier for them to respond. But if it's something that happened, say, 6 months ago, it's harder for them to get the information without a lot more work. So I don't necessarily understand why we have to, but I'm okay with being more willing to participate in this process of doing a private information request to get the information I need. And so I did that. And after I did that, I actually got an email from Emily Crawford, the city manager, who had said, yes, the PIR, the private information request system, was back up and running. It had only been down for 10 days, so no big deal. Here it is. And I just thought that was very nice of her to reach out to me. She didn't have to, but she did help me understand something better. And that is a huge shift that I'm seeing in the local government. You can see me right there holding up a paper, the budget that was 305 pages. So the lease agreements, you can see, are more than that booklet that I'm holding right there on the screen. But Anyway, maybe you're seeing it, maybe you're not. I just think it's really interesting, just this tension that we have to walk in. How can we learn to work together without being threatened? But again, I understand a lot of people engage with them on a hostile level, so it's hard. But then there's those of us who are just trying to figure out how to move forward and how to get more people involved. And so, it's tension we walk in, and we can't get our feelings hurt, and we can't be offended. We just got to go, okay, listen, they're doing the best that they can do. And until I ask for more, I can't expect them to do more. And so I just wanted to let you know that I've had some good interactions, but it is challenging because most people are so busy. They don't understand what it takes to be involved, and no one needs to be as involved as I am, but we've got to increase our involvement by at least 50% to even begin to start seeing a difference in making our community a better place. Because, like I said at the council meeting, I don't want our city to be known for the bad streets. I want us to be known for the great community that we are. And until we get some of these eyesores taken care of and some of these financial, I feel like areas of neglect taken care of, we're not going to be able to be as successful as we need to be as a community. So I hope that helps. I hope you can understand the tension I walk in, because I want more people to be involved, but I'm going to continue to do it as I can and as the Lord allows me to, and as the Lord directs me to. I'm going to continue to fight for making sure that City Hall is working for us through the council and making sure that they're implementing and establishing policies that benefit our community. And so, we got more to talk about in the days ahead, but I hope this helped you just a little bit, and I hope you'll check out the resolution, or at least the information they shared at the public hearing. Oh yeah, by the way, it was at 11:40 in the middle of the day. How many people can just randomly show up at 11:40 in the middle of the day or sit through 3 hours of meeting waiting for that public hearing? Nobody can. So anyway, the meeting was only an hour and 15 minutes long. I was gone for over three and a half hours, took up my morning. So anyway, I'll do the hard stuff. I don't mind doing it so that it can make it easier for you to jump in and get involved. So I hope that helps you. Remember, it's so important that you share this podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share it with your family and friends, because this is work I'm doing to benefit our community. And I know that there are many of you that are appreciative of that. And so what's the disconnect is there are so many people that would be discouraging us from doing this. And that's why we need to stick together, and we need to start speaking out. When we see something, we need to say something. And just so you know, I have moved the Just an Average Citizen Made Easy, which is just a time for you to start figuring out, what does it look like for me to be involved more? What's the next step that I can take that won't make me want to just throw my hands up and quit? So we meet at Allen Ridge, which is over there near ACU off of Judge Ely and Ambler. It's where Twisted Root, Fuzzy Taco, Summer Moon, the Biscuit Bar, Cork and Pig, all those places are right there. And they have this really beautiful grassy area or turfed area near some water that we sit out and until the weather goes bad on us, we're going to enjoy the beautiful weather and just talk about what's going on in our city so that we can know what things we're passionate about, how we can discuss it, where do we begin, and to see other people who are excited to be involved. So I hope you can join me on Tuesday. It'll be the week of City Council. It'll be on Tuesday nights at 7:00 for now. And I look forward to you joining me. So it's really important we get the word out so that we can make sure that we're all educated, informed, and empowered to make an impact in Abilene and the big country. Until next time.